This is my introduction to the next set of readings about power. And we've touched on power a lot so far, but this is a more direct look at it. First of all, from my colleagues John Gaventa and Andrea Cornwall. John is originally from Tennessee, has long association with American participatory action research, development of communities, worked at the Highlander Institute, closely associated with that. He's now at the University of Sussex at the Institute of Development Studies. He's been at Oxfam as a very senior, in a very senior position. Andrea Cornwall is a feminist action researcher, again at the University of Sussex Institute for Development Studies. And they've written a series of articles together about power. And they base it on the work of Stephen Lukes. I'm just going to start with Lukes. Lukes talks about 3 dimensions of power. This is his earliest book. There's another bigger version, Power, A Radical View. And he says that the first way of looking at power is to think that one person has power to make somebody else to do something. A has power over B. And Luke says this is true, but it's a pretty limited view of what power's all about. It's a rather maybe crude view, naive view, because there's much more to power than that. And so he suggests a second dimension of power, which is work based on the work of 2 sociologists a long time ago, Barak and Baratz, who said that in a lot of government situations, the key issue isn't about who can make somebody else to do something, it's about who controls the agenda, who allows things to get into the debate or not. And so the second dimension of power is that sense of control of the agenda, either formally or informally. Is it okay to talk about this? Is it okay to talk about our money, for example? Well, no, it's not okay to talk about money in polite circles. So a lot of things are simply ruled out of discussion because they are inappropriate. Or managing the power in a more formal sense in a party conference, for example. No, we won't talk about this time. We won't have a debate about that, is a means of exercising power. But Luke says that's not the end of the story. And of course, this is where John and Andrea start their work as well. He says there's another aspect of power, which isn't about how we get things on the agenda or not. It's a more extreme. It's about how we actually allow or disallow people to actually think about something. A person may exercise power, A may exercise power over B by getting him to do what he doesn't want to do, but he also exercises power by influencing, shaping, or determining his very wants. Indeed, is it not the supreme exercise of power to get another or others to have the desires you want them to have, and that is to secure their compliance by controlling their thoughts and desires? One doesn't have to go to the lengths of the Brave New World or the world of B.F. Skinner to see this. Thought control takes many less and more mundane forms, the control of information and so on and so forth. So 3 dimensions of power. The first is A, can get somebody to do something. B, we control the agenda. C, we control the way even people think. But all those think about power as a one-directional thing and as a form of oppression. And what the reading does is to go on to draw on Foucault to say that power is inherent in all social relationships. Power is something that happens all the time, particularly in micro practices of power that create particular kinds of issues. The whole idea of regimes of truth, where policing of the boundaries around what it is possible to think about and know about. It's close to the third dimensional power, but the argument is it's more infused in the whole set of social relationships. So I really commend that article to you. I put the link in. You should be able to get it from the CIIS library. I got it this morning quite easily. So that's the way to go to that. Okay, I'm just looking at the time of this recording. I've got time to carry on and put it all in one. The second reading is from Paulo Freire, a Brazilian liberator, thinker, educator, one of the absolute key thinkers, I would suggest, of the 20th century around power and liberation and education and stuff like that. And as I look at him again, there's echoes of Plumwood. So The Pedagogy of the Oppressed is his big classic book. If you Google Pedagogy of the Oppressed, you'll find a PDF of it somewhere. It might be worth buying, because if you're into this, it's an absolutely classic book, and you may want to make notes. So chapter 1 talks about the relationship between the oppressor and the oppressed. And I've got some key little quotes I picked out this morning just to illuminate this. Humanization is great. How to be human is humankind's greatest problem. And to become human is our great objective. And oppression is a distortion of being more fully human. And sooner or later, being less than human leads the oppressed to struggle against those who made them so. So Freire is saying, there is a push towards liberation. But the oppressed are fearful of freedom, and the oppressors are very good at keeping them in that place. So that whole first chapter is really a discussion of the relationship between oppressor and oppressed, which I think informs and relates quite well to Plumwood's work, but is more precise about liberation, I think. Critical liberating dialogue, which presupposes action, must be carried on with the oppressed at whatever stage of their struggle for liberation. So this leads to the whole idea of two things. One is consciousness raising, consciencialization, which I can't say in Spanish, and dialogue, which essentially are two key issues in this book. Chapter 2 I haven't necessarily asked you to read, but it's not, I don't think it's difficult. He contrasts the banking concept of education. What we're trying to do is put information into people's bank accounts, if you like, and a problem posing approach to education, which is the one he's arguing for. And chapter 3 talks about dialogue. And his theme here is that speaking and naming the world is what it is to be human in some ways, and dialogue is how you gain significance as a human being, how you experience yourself to be a human being. And I think I've said before, I've been in participatory action research places where people have said, after this, I realized I was a human being. And I love this quote, so I'll read it to you. The starting point for organizing the program of education or political action must be the present existential, concrete situation, reflecting the aspirations of the people. We must pose this existential, concrete, present situation to the people as a problem which challenges them and requires a response, not just at the intellectual level, but at the level of action. And so this process of dialogue, he argues, is a process through which humankind his words emerge from their submission and acquire the ability to intervene in reality as it is unveiled. So education becomes a process of seeing through the structures that hold our consciousness down and allow us to act. And intervention in reality thus represents a step forward from emergence and it results from the consciousness raising, the conscientiazoso, the deepening attitude awareness characteristic of all emergence. So you've got here a more analytic understanding of power in Gaventa and Cornwall, and you've got something which is more, I was going to say political, more activist oriented, more, in a sense, more passionate. But the two, I think, really fit together really nicely. And I hope you find them useful and productive.